Whitney Elkins-Hutten joins me here today, and you could learn what her team is up to by heading over to passiveinvesting.com or ashwealth.com, depending on where you are in your real estate investing journey. But really appreciate your time, Whitney. We're going to kind of cover a lot of ground here today in the next 30, 40 minutes. But you can kind of tell where we are probably going to spend most of our time with, first of all, congratulations on grabbing a domain such as passiveinvesting.com.
Well, that is our founding partner and managing partner, Dan Hanford's, what he did. But yes, it is a very key. It makes things a lot easier when we're trying to help people understand where to go and find us.
I'm always interested. Let's kind of a truncated version of this. How did you find your way into real estate investing?
Completely by accident. I bought a house with a significant partner in 2002, and about a month later, the relationship fell apart, and I had a house. I had all the responsibilities and the entire rehab to myself. And long story short, put the house back together and realized that the value I created in the world could be unhooked from the amount of time that I spent to do that. I made more money in that one transaction than I did in my day job that had me traveling over 80 hours a week sometimes. Fast forward, did several more live and flips and house hacks. I mean, we can get into, that stage of my investing career. Did really well at building up equity, really bad at cash flow, and then eventually transitioned a lot of those flips into buy and holds, built up a portfolio of 36 single family rentals, then realized that's a lot of work, managing all the rentals and the property managers and the markets and everything. And I'm like, so I'll go buy a building. So in partnership, I bought a 52 unit apartment building. And I was like, okay, I think I'm onto something here. Anyways, started buying larger and larger multifamily buildings in partnerships and then syndicating those deals. And, fast forward, my husband and I, we've been able to build up a portfolio of over 6,500 residential units, 2,200 self-storage. And we have investments in other cash flowing businesses like express car washes and the camper van rental business. But really, all of that's in service of helping us have 100% control on how we spend our time.
Wow. And how much time did it take to amass 6,500 rentals, 1,200 storage units, car washes, and everything under your portfolio?
Well, the entire journey from that first rental to where we're at today is 22 years, right? So 22 year overnight success, right? Mm. But, in reality, it's when I first discovered, hey, listen, I need to stop doing this very manual work, fix and flipping, house hacking, and start transitioning into buy and hold type property. From that point in the journey to where we're at today is about 8 years.
So would you mind sharing, what were you doing prior to this, where you said you made more money in that that initial transaction than you did your whole work life or that year? What were you doing?
Yeah, so I worked in public health. I was working for the CDC on a bioterrorism grant. I started off in medical school and then finished up in public health school. Never got my medical degree. But long story short, I was training public health nurses and physicians how to identify biological, chemical, and radiological events post 9/11. So super fun, super exciting, a lot of scary FBI meetings. And I just really wanted to be a normal, everyday person, after kind of going through that experience post 9/11. But I loved what I did. I loved the impact that I was creating in the world. And my identity was very much tied to my job. And so it was hard for me to really kind of envision myself scaling a different business or anything like that. I thought I had to, my whole career would be focused in public health. And then this one transaction showed me, I'm like, hey, I can have a side hustle right now that can make some serious money. And this will allow me to be more productive in that work that truly lights me up. Now, I've since my whole journey is morphed over the past 22 years, as you can tell. But, really that's still what I'm doing today is, educating investors on how they can leverage the power of real estate and especially passive real estate in order to build a portfolio that will serve them. That way they can feel comfortable, continuing in their, their day profession. Maybe they're a doctor or a lawyer, engineer, tech worker, heck, even an educator. My daughter announced the other day that she wants to be, an actress. I was like, hey, honey, I don't care what you do as long as you learn to invest.
Could we go back to the original experience then with this first house? When you realized that you made more on that one transaction than your yearly salary, what type of mindset shift did you have to go through to just like, was it like somebody shaking you by the shoulders, and did you have an awakening, or what was that experience?
I really wish it was as earth-shattering as that. Honestly, when I bought that property, my realtor had put the book Rich Dad Poor Dad into my hands. And I was like, oh, okay. What I took away from that book is buy real estate. I didn't take away from that book about how to shift my income from being, active income as an entrepreneur, or as an employee or self-employed, into a business owner or an investor. That's not what I took away. I was like, let's go buy a piece of real estate. And so when that relationship fell apart about a month later, I was very much in a scarcity mindset. I would say I even kind of like went back the other direction a little bit. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have this house. It's going to sink me. I have all the bills. There's no way I'm going to be out from underneath this. And so I just scraped. I'm a pretty scrappy person by nature. You can see like my medals. I run high altitude races. Those are like, that's what I do for fun. So I kind of like, being in challenging situations. And so I was like, okay, I can figure my way out of this. That's what I thought at the time. I'm figuring my way out of not owning this home any longer. I sold the house. I closed on it. And it wasn't until after the sale closed and I got that check, I was like, wait a second. I made more money in this transaction than I did in my day job. And oh, by the way, because I had roommates there, I hadn't been paying for the principal, interest, taxes, insurance, or the utilities. And I had borrowed money from family members for the rehab, and I paid them back. It was like, I made almost $52,000, $55,000 out of all borrowed assets. I was like, wait a second. That's when it started kind of dawning on me. I'm like, there's something here. But even then I was like, I didn't have it all connected, because the next property, I went and bought a mountain cabin in Estes Park, Colorado, which is not a bad place to buy, but wrong location. I wasn't thinking about the person who would buy the property after me. It had 19 steps from the driveway up to the deck. And this is in a community that's largely retirees. It, has, 3 seasons at best. So a very long winter season. And so I didn't know really anything about real estate. I just knew that I could figure my way through. So when you asked, did I have this like earth-shattering mindset shift? I knew I was onto something, but I still didn't know what I didn't know. It was really after that second transaction, which everything that could go wrong on a transaction went wrong on that transaction. And I barely broke even on that transaction. That is when I was like, okay, I think I have it figured out now. Like now I understand real estate's immutable. It's illiquid. Now I can understand that I get paid in multiple ways. It's not just all about the cash flow. It can be the equity growth too. It can be the tax benefits on the property. So it wasn't really until after that second transaction that things started like shifting for me and be like, okay, I think I get this. I think I've made a fair amount of mistakes in these 2 transactions to really kind of like have a grip going forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned that you're great at building equity, but bad at cash flow. Could you explain what you meant by that?
Yeah. In that phase in my career, I was, buying property and not really figuring out like, okay, here's the income that's coming in on the property. Here are my expenses. And the delta is the cash flow. And it was after my husband and I did another fix and flip right after that. So the third property, that's when I was like, okay, we got this figured out. I know we can get a large payday. But then at one point in time where I was like, how do people retire off of this? Like you can't even go buy groceries until like 9 months from now, right? Like whenever you sell the property. So that's when I was like, wait a second. Okay. I think I have some of these puzzle pieces figured out. I understand the tax benefits. I understand the equity build, but like if I'm going to retire, I actually need this cash flow coming in like clockwork, kind of like a paycheck, kind of replace that paycheck. Now it can be monthly, it can be quarterly, but I need that coming in to help me help replace and unlock those golden handcuffs. And live and flipping and house hacking can create that cash flow. Living flipping does not create necessarily that like regular monthly, quarterly cash flow. And so that was the next evolution of our portfolio, was moving away from those fix and flips and house hacks and starting to hold them and put a tenant in them who is paying the bills on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that everybody seems to kind of go through the somewhat similar progression. This is how we got into it too. We bought single family homes. We're fixing them up a little bit. We might sell one to pay for the next rental property. Would your evolution be explained this way as well? We quickly realized that the single family homes, the cash flow isn't as prevalent as some gurus may have you believe, and we were forced to now consider, okay, how do we get into multifamily as quickly as possible?
Yeah, so I would agree. And sometimes I don't discount buying the single family homes, because it's not that you get a gold star for buying a single family home before you go into a multifamily property. Like, it's not like a college prerequisite course. You don't have to do that. But for some people, that is they can't translate their current skill of owning a roof over the head to be able to like figure out, okay, like how do I underwrite a multifamily property? Like, I don't even know how one works. Like, how do I source tenants? How do I source the lending on this? How do I source property management? Right. So the single family homes, I think, are a good stepping stone. Do you need to get to 36 like my husband and I did? I don't think so. I think you can stop way short of that. And really just, what you're looking for is proof of concept. Okay. And then use those homes to build capital for yourself so you can go into those larger transactions. There was a methodology that I read about when I was kind of first starting off, which is the house stacking. So start with the one home, and then a duplex, and then a fourplex, then an eightplex, then a 16, right? So your transactions are leveling up very quickly, but you're kind of creating this milestone path for yourself. So you're not just leaping from 0 to 16. But yes, I 110% agree. We scaled to 36 single family rentals inside 2 years. 30 of those were largely like fix and flips. That we needed to do in order to build capital, to be able to recycle capital and be able to scale that type of portfolio. Do I think I need to get to 36? No, I don't think so. I think we could have made that transition way sooner. But yeah, if you're going to have larger regular monthly incomes, you got to figure out how to create scale in the business. And multifamily is really good for that.
Is that one of the reasons why you started Ash Wealth, to help people get off the ground and work through those initial real estate investing pains?
Yeah. So Ash Wealth was really born out of a podcast that I did with Bigger Pockets. I talked about, getting my first 10 rentals and transitioning into that fix and flip real estate. Not fix and flip, but like more of a BRRRR type investing, where you're buying the property, rehabbing it, putting a tenant in, and refinancing out your capital. And, people started, reaching out to me like, will you show me how you did it? And I was like, yeah, heck yeah, let's do it. So that's really where that started, that, ashwealth.com really started, was that type of mentoring. But I was very, unlike kind of the gurus out there, I was very upfront with people. I'm like, this is a lot of work. Guys, you're seeing the end product of years and years of work. I will help make it super condensed and collapsed for you. I'll help you turn decades into days. However, it's going to take money. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of hustle. And I think that, kind of echoing back, that's the message that some people, for some reason, people paint for other investors out there is like, this is super easy. When you're actively investing like this in small single family rentals, or if you own and manage your own portfolio, it's simple, it's direct, it's not a complicated process, but it does take time and energy. You do, in some form or fashion, have another job.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's refreshing to hear you say this, because more times than not, it seems like we're always pitching such a rosy picture. And you get a lot of people who are finding shows like this who might have caught an episode or two of HGTV, and they think that they can flip a house in 30 minutes.
Well, if you read the follow-up on those type of stories, oftentimes those homes fall apart. They're stuck together with like glue and tape. So, right? Reality sets in. And so think about it. When people like that are flipping their house, that they're working in that business full time, right? They have systems in place. They have a team in place, right? Even, I don't know if it happens in 30 minutes, but the good quality rehabs like take a little bit longer. For you, most people that are getting into real estate and buying their first, handful of single family or small multifamily properties probably have some sort of day job. They might have a family. They might have kids. I mean, I was doing this, working full time. My husband was working full time. We had a baby at home, small child. I'm taking care of multiple family members, 2 grandparents and my mother from a distance. Talk about taking the candle, burning it at both ends and a few times in the middle. So can you still do it? Absolutely. I don't want to deter anybody, but you just have to go in eyes wide open and be prepared that you have to create systems and actually learn how to bring on the right people to your team. And that's one thing that I wish I had learned so much sooner. Is I thought I had to do everything myself. It was when I finally started understanding how to bring who's on my team. If you ever read, Dan Sullivan's book, Who Not How, like this is a team sport. Like, how can I bring other people into my world? How can I have that rock star realtor, property manager, lender, people that knew me, I knew them, and like, I could just fire off one email template in my Gmail and get a, either a rental comp back from the property manager in a couple hours, or I could get, term sheet from my lender in a couple hours. Like, I had to put those systems in place because I just didn't have the time to do it all on my own.
When you're talking about system and processes, I feel like I keep repeating myself on a couple topics, but treating this as an actual business instead of a hobby or a side hustle, was that something that you're trying to get people on board with?
Yes. Yeah. Because, here's the thing. One thing that I really try to help people understand from the very beginning is 99% of the people that I've ever talked to, be it a passive investor, a passiveinvesting.com, or somebody who's starting to build their portfolio with Ash Wealth, is they like the result of real estate. They don't actually need or want to be in real estate. Okay. So that means you're not going to be the self-employed person. Don't put yourself in that position to do everything and be hands-on, because you want the result, not necessarily you don't want to own the job. So let's start off the right way, building this as a business. Even as a passive investor, let's start building this with systems in place, like how to, source operators and markets, how to methodically like track your portfolio and to make sure that it, tracks along with your investing goals. Even in that capacity, we're talking about this. But yeah, you have to create systems, because most people's why is that they want time freedom and choice freedom. If you're constantly just chasing the money and not thinking about these other freedoms in life, you're going to scale the wrong business. And I can't tell you how many investors I've helped like unwind, 196 unit, multifamily rental portfolio, and like reorganize everything to where like there's systems in place. I mean, it's constantly, a challenge that I'm helping people work on.
Well, I'm guessing that's where passiveinvesting.com comes in as well. I mean, a lot of people, we get into this real estate investing realize that we've just created ourselves a JOB, or that people are awakened to the concept of how much actual work this does take, but they still want to participate in real estate investing. Can you talk a little bit about passiveinvesting.com, what you're doing and how you're enabling that path?
Absolutely. I want to, if I can touch base on two things that I think will really help listeners on the systems front and make it super clear for people. Systems can mean a checklist. So even just having a checklist that you run, that you've thought out and that you are running is a system. So it can be super clear. You don't have anything, you don't have to have fancy software or anything like that. Just, checklist, well-documented checklist. And if you're not a tactile person, if you don't like typing those things out, create a Loom video and pay somebody off of $5 or $10 to transcribe that Loom video to help set up your systems. So I wanted to make sure I gave somebody very tactical pointers there, because that can really help unstick people. But yeah, remember I at the top of the show, I said, you don't get a gold star to, you don't have to go buy that single family rental portfolio in order to, get into the larger portfolios. If that's where where you want to be, you can, since 2012, private equity syndications are now available to the private retail investor for you to invest in. And so I find this really, for somebody who's already an accredited investor, or, maybe a sophisticated investor that, has, a substantial net worth, or somebody who's very, has a business, or is a doctor, lawyer, tech worker, high income earner, passive investing can be a great way for you to get the results of real estate without actually having to own the real estate yourself or actually go complete that transaction. So what you're doing is really you're creating a partnership. You're the silent partner, and you're looking for an active partner who has the knowledge and expertise of that asset class that you want to include in your portfolio, that has the team already in place to underwrite the deal, asset manage the deal. They also have the credit and lending already in place. Okay, they can source that out. I mean, I don't have $80 million in my bank account, but if I pull people's monies together, now I can go get an $80 million loan on a large institutional grade multifamily property, right? So I get to utilize the power of the group to get access to these, larger investments. And then what do I get in return? I get an actual return, cash flow, equity growth, tax benefits. I get capital preservation. Also, I get my time back. And that's a return you just can't calculate.
Mm-hmm. Well, you cover a lot of ground regarding the assets that you have been tackling, whether it's the rental properties, the storage units, the car washes. Can you talk a little bit about what you're targeting right now?
Yeah. So at passiveinvesting.com, we're still very much believe in the multifamily market. Cap rates are compressed. Cash flow is a little, short. I mean, that's nothing new. We've known that for the past 12 to 24 months. So we're just kind of sitting tight, here and continuing to optimize our current portfolio and, looking for deals, discounted deals. Those deals will come. There's several billions of loans that are going to be due here at the end of the year, and not every single one of them are going to get worked out by the bank. And so we're going to put ourselves in a position to help operators and investors out on those deals. We're continuing to look for self-storage, but we're staying pretty much in our southeast corner of the United States on both multifamily and self-storage. But investors still are chasing yield. Okay, it's kind of like the seller that says, well, I know my property should have taken a hit in value, but because there's just not that many properties available, my value is remaining high, right? They can still command high prices, but the cash flow just isn't there. And so we have some investors that are like, they're still looking for that cash flow. And you can combine an operational business with real estate in order to help generate that type of cash flow. You can do it with laundromats. For us, our investment of choice is express car washes. And so, we've been looking at secondary and tertiary markets to really expand development of car washes and serve those communities and, make that income model much like a repeating monthly recurring revenue model like you would have like with self-storage or a multifamily building. So those are some things that really excited about. And then debt. That's another amazing opportunity here. Debt, most people think when they think debt, they think bonds. They're not entirely correlated. When interest rates go high, bonds usually suffer. But right now, if you are the private lender on debt, there's been a flight of, banking debt. And so there's a lot of operators or, fix and flip borrowers that are underserved right now. And so this is an amazing time for, people who lend money to these type of operations to step in and fill that gap. And so that's, so where there might have been a competing loan that a borrower could go get for 10 or 11% at the bank, they still want to do business. They're okay paying an additional percentage to, a private borrower at say 11 or 12%. So we've been able to really step in and continue to, keep the market going in some of these communities, but also, fill that need in the market.
So if somebody climbs on board and is participating in passiveinvesting.com, what type of lock-in do they experience and what is your exit strategy for each property?
Yeah. So, with multifamily and self-storage, we're buying the buildings together. So, we aim to reposition those buildings in 5 to 7 years. We're motivated to do it in 5 for tax purposes and can kind of continue to play Monopoly, trade up into the next building to continue to reset that depreciation clock and keep income tax-free or tax sheltered, I should say. So that's kind of the strategy there. As far as our express car washes, it's not all about the real estate. We have an operating business. And so, we're looking to reposition and either sell the portfolio or IPO the portfolio, in 5 to 7 years. But, we have a nice cash flowing business. I don't think any of our investors would be too upset if we didn't reposition that portfolio because has very strong cash flows on it. So it's a little bit different play. And then on the debt, for investments under $500,000 on our debt fund that invest in fix and flip real estate, there is no lockup. So you can redeem, you can get your capital invested. As soon as it's invested, you can redeem it the next day and we have 90 days to return the capital to you. But often we do it much faster. For investments over 500,000, there's a larger preferred return that we give for that, but a small lockup on that.
Okay. Just to remind everybody, learn more about what Whitney's team is up to by going to passiveinvesting.com or ashwealth.com. And wherever you are in your investment journey, either of these avenues might be a good fit for you. Before we go into the rapid fire questions, Whitney, is there a question or concept you wish we would have covered here so far?
Well, I would just like to leave somebody with a tool here. If you're starting off on your real estate investing journey and you're trying to figure out either how do I continue to, or first of all, get my initial down payment or investment or scale on top of it. Maybe you've run out of capital. How do I replenish the coffers and continue to scale? I have a wonderful book that I just released with Bigger Pockets called Money for Tomorrow, How to Build and Protect Generational Wealth. You can get it on Bigger Pockets and get some free resources along with that, or you can find it on Amazon as well.
That sounds great. Well, Whitney, if you're ready, we'll jump into the rapid fire questions and close out this episode.
All right, let's do it.
First off, what lie do real estate investors tell themselves and sometimes to others?
Ooh, I think it depends on what stage of your journey you're in, but knowing that most people, here are active investors or early on in their investing journey, I think the lie that people tell themselves is that they have to do it all themselves, that they're going to have greater control if they do it that way. And that's simply not true. That's, really, you're probably hindering your growth and you're missing out on the opportunity to tap into, bring somebody on your team that probably has more experience in that area than you do.
Sure. What book would you recommend or what are you reading right now?
What I'm reading right now is actually Bigger, Bolder, Better. So it's a great mindset book, especially for women. But my favorite book, one that I read every single year, is The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. I've read that book every single year for the last 8 years. And every single time I read it, I take away something new as far as on how to cast a vision, reorganize my priorities, right? Because it's not ever about how much time you have. It's about how do you prioritize things against each other, and then time block it to get things done. And so that's an amazing book. I encourage everybody to dive into that.
Sure. If you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
I still feel that how I started my portfolio by accident is a great way to get started, making the roof over your head cash flow. I would probably tell myself, though, to bring on partners earlier and transition into that larger real estate faster than accumulating so many single family rentals.
What single strategy, process, or tool have you implemented that has had the biggest time-saving impact to your business?
Learning how to passively invest has diversified and scaled my portfolio beyond anything that I could have done on my own. And so it's saved me an incredible amount of time, and it's generated an incredible amount of cash and equity, tax benefits. So learning how to add that appropriately to your portfolio, I think, is a very powerful strategy.
Well, just one more reminder, head over to passiveinvesting.com or ashwealth.com. Whitney, this has been a great conversation. I hope you'll consider coming back and we'll deep dive on a couple of these topics that I made notes of. Again, it's passiveinvesting.com or ashwealth.com. It was great meeting you.
Yes, you as well. And I would love to. Thank you.